So, hello everybody. We would like to welcome you, Mai-Thu and myself, to this artist talk. My name is Madeleine Schuppli. I'm the director of the Kunsthaus in Aarau, and we just collaborated on a solo show that Mai-Thu has in Aarau right now, and that's why we're having this conversation here about Mai-Thu's work, about her many shows that are going on at the moment, or that will open soon, and about her practice as an artist. I mean, it's a bit weird that we talk about art and we don't have art here, so we're a bit in the void. So maybe we start by talking about the artist. So about you, introducing you. You live in Geneva. You're 34 years old. You studied first literature, and then you went to the Whitney study program in New York. You collaborated with a lot of artists, with Stephen Parino. You also with people from the design, from the fashion, from music. Maybe what else would be important to, if one wants to introduce you, or what would be important as a reference or as an influence for your work?
I don't know, maybe in terms of the, how do you say, the parcours or the development, it was, the first thing I did was work as a curator, so that's also, I think, quite funny, maybe. Before I did the Whitney, I worked with Fabrice, who's here, and we ran a space together in Geneva, an independent art space, and that was my school in a way, so that's the one thing I can think of.
And what else would be influences, maybe other artists? Did you have a kind of a mentor or someone who inspired you starting with art? Also in your family, there's no other artists as far as I know, so it was maybe not an obvious thing to start a career as an artist?
It wasn't obvious, but I knew when I was a teenager and then at university, I had friends who were artists, and I was always very impressed with their stupidly their lives. I thought that they had I felt that they had a freedom that I didn't think academics, or because that was, for one, that's what I thought I would do. I thought I would become an academic or maybe write, and that was a very interior and internal and sort of maybe lonely practice, and I wasn't so comfortable with that. And art seemed to be something that, because nobody knows what it is, you can make it. It feels like you could shape it or write its form maybe more easily than if you worked in, say, a university for sure, or even writing novels. So that was my first. That was a very big thing for me. Also there was in Geneva where I grew up. There was a big independent art scene, kind of alternative scene with a squat scene and lots of people creating their own spaces, and that was a really big. That was one of the things that really made me want to become an artist, was to see that these people, friends who are running, people like Sidney Stucki in Geneva, who ran this place called La Régie, and there was Ford, which was founded by Fabrice Gigi. All these places, it was so great to see people just do things themselves. I mean, it wasn't really necessarily about this kind of environments. That came a little bit later, this stuff.
So it attracted you as a field in which you had a lot of freedom, and many things would be possible. Was that?
Well, I think it was the freedom to structure things the way you want, and to create work that can be composite and how would you say? I think it's easier to have a very heterogeneous practice as an artist than maybe as a writer. And I think the human. The relationship part of it, I always liked. The fact that you could, collaborate with people to do things, and also delegate, which I do quite often. I think it's hard to have people write your books for you, for example. I mean, you can do that, but it's not the same. I mean, there's a certain distance. As an artist, there's so many different things that are being done under the umbrella of art. So I think that's what was most attractive to me.
So I think most of the people that are here know your work or have seen your work. Some of the work can be seen at the galleries now at the fair. I suggest maybe we talk a moment about your pieces at the Venice Biennial, because I presume most of those who are present have seen these, have been to Venice, so we have a common ground. In Venice, you show 3 pieces. One would be kind of a mannequin wearing a dress, which is a replica of this famous dress by Elsa Schiaparelli, this skeleton dress where the inside of the body is outside on this black dress, a neon piece and a wall painting. Could you maybe tell a bit more about maybe starting with this figure with the dress, what you were working on?
The piece is quite typical of the way that I like to. I start one work and then out of it somehow it becomes reconfigured and bleeds into being something completely different. So. Originally, I wanted to make a short film based on this dress. I've seen the dress in exhibitions, and I've have books about Schiaparelli, and I think she's just a really interesting person, and I was really fascinated by the object. And I wanted to make a film with a female character wearing the dress and wandering around. And in a way, the film is almost the principal protagonist of the film is this dress and this female figure who wanders around London, and she's a kind of, maybe she's a figure of death, or maybe she's a figure of a poet or this kind of artist figure. She's in any ways a shadow, and she comes out of a tube station, a very normal London tube station, and Tufnell Park, and she walks from Tufnell Park in a normal street. You see a guy at the pizza store next door looking at her, and this woman is completely out of context and out of sync with the modern life of London, and she takes a walk and goes to Hampstead Heath, which is a place I like a lot, and sings a song on a little ukulele, a John Dolan song, which gave its title to the piece. And then it's cut, and she's again in a place called Dungeness, where she swims, where she has a picnic of strange looking foods that are shaped like organs of the body. So it's this, I guess it's taking this trope of this kind of the kind of surrealist bodily metaphor of that's already evident in the dress is also used with this sort of picnic, this kind of weirdly self-cannibalistic picnic, but it's also very funny because it's mostly kind of sweets and things like that. She's eating sweets that are shaped like eyes, and then she takes off her dress and disappears into a kind of shallow brackenish pool, and then the film ends and loops back again, and she comes out of the tube station again. So it's this kind of endless cycle of coming out from the dark into the light, and then disappearing again and starting again. So this was the first thing, and I didn't have a plan for. I mean, when I made the film, I made the dress because I needed a costume, and it was a prop, and it was I wouldn't have been able to let the V&A, which owns the dress, let me use it. So I made a copy on to measure for I had a tailor make a copy for my friend Tamara Bonnet-Heron, who's a singer that I work with very often and who's the main actress in this film. And I kept the dress after the film was made, and I sort of was lingering in my mind that it was a bit there was more that you could get from this object. And so I made the mannequin, and the mannequin is again, it's molded on, the face is also molded from Tamara's face, and then it's cast out of glass, and it has it's a funny technique where you blow glass inside a mold, and then you silver the inside. So it's basically like a giant Christmas ornament, I guess, and then the rest of the body is like a regular, shop window mannequin out of film. And from this piece, I set it sort of, I guess, in contrast to this very large abstract triangular neon that's about 5 meters or 4.5 meters high, and I guess it's still this light shadow thing, or this binaries. She next to the neon, there's also in the same room. There's also a wall painting that has the same drawing as the neon, but white on white. So it's almost imperceptible, and it's these two forms of light, or almost like this shadow of the luminous object. I don't know. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it probably doesn't make any sense at all. But
yeah, you can see the object in Venice, and the film you can see currently in Aarau.
yeah, the film is in the show.
The film that you just described. I mean, I think your work, now as you described it, it has a very sensual side to it. You work a lot with space. It has it's also always a strong experience if one is confronted with your work. On the other hand, your artistic practice has a very strong intellectual background, a very strong conceptual background as well. Do you see your work also between these two poles of maybe sensual aesthetic research, and then on the other hand, there is more intellectual?
I don't really make the difference. I mean, I never really got that difference.
I don't see it as a difference, but as two elements that are joined together in the work, or two forces maybe that come together in your work.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I think that I don't know, feelings are feelings are thoughts too. So I don't really cut it up that way. But I understand that that's a possible how do you say, it's a possible interpretation, but that's not really how things come about. I don't think you have to choose. I mean, I don't think you have to choose. I don't have a Puritan need to make things look, ugly or unsensual just because it's going to make me look more intelligent. I think it's fine if people think that, I don't know, that material, for example, this material thing, if it's, on some level it is maybe very futile, but that's also okay, I think. I think materials have in a way, there's a kind of mind of materials anyways. I mean, not that I talk to my things or anything like that, but materials have a certain logic to them, and that's, I think, as complex as the logic of writing definitions or conceptual art in a sort of boxed in way. So I don't know if that's the kind of, I never really separate those things.
Yeah, that brings me to a topic that I find quite amazing also in your looking at your work, that it is so varied. You're using plenty of different techniques, like neon, ceramics, painting, sculpture, video, sound. So it's so varied in the material or in the artistic techniques that you're using. And on the other hand, and also now we had reactions regarding the exhibition in Aarau, that people were saying, one doesn't, if one forgets that this is a solo show by one artist, it could be also the work of different artists. And that was reminding me of the first piece I saw of yours that was at Gallery Francesca Pia in 2003 in Bern. A small show where you showed ceramic objects, and you were explaining at the opening that these objects were made by different individuals, that they were the result of a workshop made by women living in the desert of New Mexico, and that was a result of the workshop, these different objects, so that not you were the only creative individual behind the pieces, but different. So
well, that was the structure. That was the basic structure that I came up with when I started making work and showing it, was to invent a fictional group of people and a commune called, that they go by different names. They can be Land of Crystal, New Ponderosa, Year Zero, or they have different. They can have different names, and it's a group of women who have left to live in the desert in New Mexico. And so this sort of framework, this sort of narration was always really important, because it was I thought of it as a tool as a way to make the work, and also as a kind of how do you say, what would you call that, a narrative of beginnings, or some kind of I'm trying to find the word in English, but this kind of narrative of these people and of my work in a way, because I was never very satisfied. I was always uncomfortable with, if it's your first piece, I mean, if you put yourself in the position of someone who's decided that they're going to be an artist and they're going to make a piece, where do they start? I mean, I guess maybe, where do you start? Why orange? Why blue? Why a sculpture? I mean, it's just mind-boggling, and it's completely random. So I thought if it's, in order to sort of cut through the randomness, I was going to invent other people, or maybe invite other people, and then some multiple selves or something like that, and make them do the work. And then I would have also fictional slaves that would do my work, which is, it's always great to have people do things for you. So it was, that was the framework, and the 25 sculptures of pure self-expression was sort of maybe 4 years into that project when. Before I made more more utilitarian things. So chairs, I made some chairs. I made some, embroidered banners. I mean, there was always this connection to, sometimes a touch ironic connection to feminist art and to a handicraft and things like that. And I wanted to there was a point when I decided that these people, not only did they build houses and take care of, horses and grow their own food and stuff, but they also had, like us here, they have a culture, and they make stuff, and they want to represent themselves in things. And so I thought that I would have a workshop showing their stuff and the venue for that would be my gallery. And so I came up with this workshop of pure self-expression, and I picked that was my first entry into clay, because I felt it had all the right associations as a material with this. It's also, I mean, art therapy. If you fall on your head and you're chronically injured, and and then they give you putty to play with, and this is supposed to make you feel better. So I know this from experience. So I thought this is the perfect thing, and I made these works. But the works it was quite. It was both. I think it was both lighthearted, but also. I was working from lists as well. When I made these pieces, I made lists of all the possible types of what would self-expression be. So it was also a bit maybe how would you say? It was staging my own ambivalence towards expressing oneself, and it was quite jokey. So. But not in a not in a making fun kind of way. But there was definitely this distance. So I made all these little sculptures, and I asked from these lists of things. So they were, for example, biomorphic things, or crystalline things, or masculine things, or feminine things, and sad things. I mean, there were and I also invited friends to make some of these things for me. But but it was a slightly, how would you say? It kind of had a catch, because you were invited to do something, but you were told what to do, so it wasn't so free. And that's what you saw. And then they were divided into these five tables.
But are you also questioning this notion of this unique and very personal creativity of the artist?
Yeah, I guess. I don't really. I mean, I believe in it and I don't believe in it at the same time. I'm still on the fence. It's still got to be proven to me that there's a thing called, something that comes from within. So making art is the best way to find out, I guess.
Because in your work, of course, when one knows well your work, one could recognize your. But it would be kind of what you do still would be kind of the opposite what some other Swiss artists like Thomas Hirschhorn would do, where he has a variety of topics that he works on, but he has this aesthetic hand writing that you recognize all of it.
It's a signature style.
Yeah, and you don't have that at all.
No, I try to avoid it, but I've also figured out with time that if you just force yourself to erase, if every day you erase what you made the day before, your life is very painful. So sometimes I start something, and if I still like it, I keep on doing it. I don't make myself. I don't really stand up to my own ideals in a way. So I did these things like, for example, the ceramic thing, which started as a halfway ironic project, became in a way quite serious, because I've been making all these ceramic things, and I put my hand in this clay and I work with it, and there's a sort of process things that just took over in a way. So And that was kind of miraculous, the way that this, it really worked for me.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't want to have a signature style.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's I find it a bit boring.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
We were talking about materials, and you say, I mean, it has a meaning. A material or a technique has a meaning. You're using quite a few techniques that are linked to female production, like ceramics, textiles, like older artists like Rosemary Trockel or Cosima von Bonin. You're deliberately using those techniques. What about the gender topic? Is that something that is important to you? Do you question it also by using these territories that were?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's I guess it's one of the lines of I don't know. It's one of the interpretations that you could have of what I do, and I find the whole business of like male and female and that there's two different genders and stuff. I find that quite puzzling. So it's a big part of the work as well. But I think the thing about materials, it's not just a personal thing about. I think they're materials, like everything else, are how would you say, socially and institutionally defined. So I mean, I inherited the fact that that ceramic was a female craft. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm interested in. It's the fact that there is this package that you come into this place, world, and there's these things that I don't know, these things that are supposed to be straightforward, like these categories, and I think it's I'm interested in them specifically because of all those associations and that how do you say, how laden it is with meaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you pick. I mean, I would tend to pick a medium or a way to realize a project because I know that the particular technique signifies. I mean, it signifies a lot with the materials that you use. I think it's already sent out a signal even before you've made the piece. In a way, if you say, "Oh, I'm making a 16mm film on a loop with a projector." Or I'm making an HD projection. There's a completely different feeling or kind of expectation that will arise from these choices.
Yeah. I see our time is already
up.
Almost over, but I want to ask you something to maybe round up a bit the discussion, which goes a bit in another direction. You're a very productive artist. Now I had quite some time that we were in a close exchange, and I really saw, I mean, you're still young, your work is already large. We had, for instance, for this, we could call it, I think, a retrospective, what we have in Aarau now. There was no problem of choosing amongst quite a large choice, a rich choice of works where we could choose from for the exhibition. Then you just opened another show in Geneva. You will have another exhibition, a museum show. You don't want to be reminded.
No, I
in
am
August.
Reminded. I know. No, of course
Zurich.
I know. No. I mean,
so how do you do it? And how do you work so intensively, so fast? Also, do you have people who support you? Do you have people who do research for you? You produce with you? How does it work? I
have people who make things. I collaborate with people who help me make the work, and I don't have a studio in the sense of like. I don't have a place with people who are making things, and I don't have assistants who are there constantly. But I have people that I ask to help me or to assist me on individual projects, and so I have fabricators for some things, and for some other things I make them myself. But I've never thought of delegating the research. I think that would be interesting, but the research I also get the research I just get from having a conversation with you, or it's somebody mentions a thing and you're like, oh, this is interesting, and then you look into it. So of course you need help to do to make the work. I think you saw during the process.
Yeah. And now there's so much interest in your work. Maybe I shouldn't ask you. I should ask the galleries. I should ask the other curators. But still, maybe I'm sure you've thought about it. Why is so much going on? So much interest is so intense now.
It's
for
it's
you
the
now
law-
these
how's it
times. How
called?
do you explain
It's
it?
the law of
maybe?
diminishing return, but backwards. It's. I think if you do one thing and then a person, you do a thing and people see it, and then you do another one and people see it, and it just sort of spirals. But maybe sometimes I think, next year nobody's going to propose anything, and I'm going to be alone, and I'll have nothing to do, and I'll be really
I
sad.
don't think so.
But I don't really know. I mean. Or maybe I don't want to. It's a thing that I don't really spend too much time thinking about. I think it's a little stressful maybe to think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a misunderstanding.
In what way do you have?
Well, that's what's so good about art is like you put a thing out there and then people take it and they make something of it. So in a way, what people are making of my work is more about. It's not really about me. It's about this world and this dialogue that people build with it. So and when the work is made, I'm a spectator. Maybe a curator sometimes. So I arrange them, I put them together, but it becomes eerily. It becomes self. It's kind of self. It's self-replicating. It's growing.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mai-Thu, and we invite all of you to come and see if you haven't yet to see Mai-Thu's show in Aarau. We have some leaflets here. We have some catalogs as well that just came out 3 days ago with the record actually included. It's a very beautiful artist book that Mai-Thu made together with Marie-Louisa. So thank you all for your interest, and thank you, Mai-Thu.
Do we have no question? I guess we don't have the time for questions, huh? Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.